Here's our old friend Model Color from Vallejo. About 15 years ago, I tried this paint and it did not work well for me, and I was very unhappy with it. And recently, I tried it again, and I was shocked to discover that the what had been something I really didn't like is completely different. This is a completely different product than it used to be. And I'd have to say that this is one of the best paints I've used. What we're going to do with it, though, is we're going to take it out of this plastic bottle. I was saying in an earlier video that I want to talk about thinning paint. Before you can thin it, you got to put it into a package where you can actually look at it, stir it around, check out what you've got, stir it a little bit more, look at the stirring stick, and evaluate what you're doing here. If you're going to thin paint, you're going to mix paint, you're going to be working with the paint the way I do, you need to put it in a bottle. This is designed for a completely different paradigm, which I don't care about. Okay, so what do we do first? We take off the lid. We take these pliers to remove the spout, and then we squeeze the paint into the jar. I think the word jar is more appropriate for that little item there. I'm going to put a link in the description to this particular kind of jar. You can get them at Amazon. This is a 1 ounce jar. Okay, now comes the fun part. I'm just going to scoop that paint out of there. You can see this is some stiff paint. And this is a stiff brush, synthetic brush. Now, the only thing you need to know to be just about as knowledgeable as the average art supply store clerk is that for stiff paint, you need a stiff brush. Stiffer the paint, stiffer the brush. You need that stiffness in the brush to push that thick paint around. On the other hand, if you're using really thin paint like watercolor, you have a little poofy soft brush, camel hair brush. So I'm hoping that right now I'm kind of solving an ongoing riddle for those of us who didn't go to art school. Maybe some of us who did. Why are there so many different kinds of brushes? Why are some of them called this and that? Watercolor, oil paints. Many artist paints come in a tube. They kind of have the consistency of toothpaste. You need a very stiff brush. Okay, for that. Okay. Now, this paint separated somewhat in the bottle. It's been my experience that the Vallejo paint I've seen has not done that, but this one seemed to separate a little bit. So in order to get it to all go back together into a nice uniform consistency, I'm going to stir it a bit. But the idea is that until you can stir it, until you can actually look at it, you don't have the kind of control you need over this at all. You need to have this kind of control, or your experiments with brush painting will not go well. All right, you can see how thick that is. But it's not as thick as some paint, and it's quite a bit thicker than others. So thinning it is going to be very much an inexact science. When you're dealing with something that's inexact, you need to have a lot of parameters. In other words, you need a lot of observables. You can't see nothing if you ain't got the paint in a clear glass jar. Now we can see what we're doing. Big wide mouth. See what we're doing. We'll be able to mix it, stir it, use that paint.